So, Bear, who has scored the Sarah Connor Chronicles, Defiance, Battlestar Galactica, on and on.
Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is up next.
Just announced. Yeah, baby.
Yeah, I mean, I've played around at a science fiction playground before, but I had never seen anything like this. It really felt like a new experience for me because it was so realistic. You know, really, the funny thing about the music in this, and I'm sure that Ben and Sebastian can also comment that this is a greater issue with editorial, all of the science we've been talking about, once you cut the movie together, as these guys were saying earlier, it still has to function as a movie. So part of my job was to make sure that there was an emotional through line there, that you connected with these characters. But how do you do that without totally destroying the faux documentary elements? And this was something that it took a lot of back and forth. I mean, I probably scored this movie 3 times before we found, we do it once and then we just kind of look at it and be like, nah, it's not working, it feels too much like a movie, but then you pull back too far and then it doesn't connect, So the solution that I found was that the score really kind of has 2 personalities. There's a side of it that is very cold and mechanical, and in fact, I must say a lot of the rumbling you've been feeling in that last clip, a lot of it was actually in the score. There are these heavy, deep synthesizer elements that sound mechanical, like they're part of the ship. And then on top of that, there's just this shamelessly beautiful orchestral writing, and I wrote this melody that it's just one of the prettiest melodies I've ever written, and I think that it was very cool for you guys to allow me to do that, because it's something that is definitely an old school cinema trick, to have a melody that gets stuck in your head, and it's something that is evocative and beautiful, and it doesn't really belong in a documentary, but it belonged in Europa. I think we found the room for it.
We didn't know what we were going to do, I don't think, musically. When we made the movie, I want to describe what Sebastian did. He builds a real spaceship in a warehouse in Brooklyn. He outfitted it with cameras, and we shot it in the round, closed the ship. He's on a mic, directing everyone on the mic. And then we end up, after shooting it, with 8 running cameras of footage over the course of the entire shoot, with infinite editing possibilities. We know we're going to kind of cut it like a documentary. He's got 4 editors cutting this stuff. And we didn't know what the movie was going to be like. We didn't know what the music or the score was going to require. We knew we were going to end up with something different. And I think when we gave it to you, it was like, try it out. See what you can do.
Yeah, well, there was definitely some moments of throwing paint up on a canvas, I think the in that I finally had, because I kept trying to wrap my head around this, going, we're watching footage from the mission that is ostensibly cut together by the company responsible for the mission. So even the editing style is a character. What they're choosing to show you, there's a reason they're trying to show you this. And I kind of thought, all right, I pretended that I was actually an employee of Europa Ventures. What is the story they want to tell? And in that regard, suddenly when there's emotion, when we're connecting with these people, well, it's like for the audience, we're connecting with these people, which is good, but you also have a company trying to cover its ass, and trying to make a narrative out of something that we gather didn't necessarily go well. So once we had talked about that, then we were able to rationalize why there would be beautiful, evocative, cinematic music in a documentary.
The other thing I want to add that I think Bear's work was crucial in bringing to the film is that we've been talking a lot about the science, we've been talking a lot about all the research behind this, but ultimately a movie works if the characters in the movie are people you care about, people that you can identify with, you can put yourself in their shoes, and using the photo documentary element and the monitoring cameras inside the ship, has the danger of being a little bit cold. It has the danger of removing you a little bit from the characters. So we needed to find all the opportunities and all the resources that we could to actually bring you closer to the characters and humanize them. And I think the music is definitely one of the key elements in making you connect with the characters, and it was really crucial in getting the film to work.
Well, and that's where I think a really memorable melody comes in. I mean, I'm always an advocate of having a tune that sticks with you, and there's a melody that I wrote for the film that starts in the beginning, and it comes up in just those key emotional moments, and then you hear it again at the ending credits, and it kind of bookends the whole experience. And I don't know, I just think it's one of the coolest tunes I've ever written, honestly. I'm super proud of it. So the record comes out in a couple weeks, and we'll be up on, the album will be up on iTunes if you guys want to check it out.
Where was like an interesting point where the science was able to drive the story and vice versa?
Well, to just give you one example without, hopefully without spoiling too much of the end of the movie. In the original script, the first version that I read, the big finding that this crew made happened on the surface of Europa, and we know, talking to these guys and reading about it, we know that what's really significant is underneath the ice. So we really worked out the third act to make it all happen as basically the ice begins to crack, which brings more tension, to the third act, and allows for like a big discovery to happen, which would not have happened just on the surface of the moon itself. So it's one of those things that we kept going back and forth. Okay, how can we incorporate this? Because otherwise, the ending of the film could fall apart. In terms of the science behind it. And it's actually interesting that it brought so much more tension to that to that climax than if we would have followed just the original idea.
I want to say, having that discussion where Kevin and I were able to say, that's not likely, I think it led to a really interesting creative exchange where we got to think about what would really happen under the ice, and how would that be something that we could tell in a story and film.
And this team was so amazing to work with that we would iterate through things. And for example, Phil touched on the radiation environment. And that's a wonderful example of us working with the team, telling them that, listen, the radiation, that's a huge issue in the design of our spacecrafts and our instruments, etc. And that ends up being an important plot mechanism for Karolina's character as she goes out for a spacewalk, and for all the astronauts. And to the delight of anybody who works on Europa, they're going to see this radiation as sort of a central motivating plot element.